Hey, friends, and welcome to another episode of the podcast as we broadcast live from ESTO 2022. On this episode, we're talking with Patty Jane. She is from GVSU, and she runs Michigan Cares for Tourism. And as of right this very second, they are celebrating their 10th year with over 4,000 volunteers over the life of the program and over 400 industry donors for this program that I cannot wait to share with you. And our guest for this episode of the podcast as we continue to broadcast live from ESTO 2022. She is not here live. She's actually joining us via Zoom. Patty Jane, how are you, my friend?
Oh, you know what? I am lovely. And after a soiree like you all hosted last night, I am even more lovely. So if I may, let me start by saying thank you to MLive for graciously honoring our charity, Michigan Cares for Tourism, with donations from those fabulous artists last night. So
It is, absolutely our pleasure to do that. And that's obviously why we're here today, Patty, is to talk about Michigan Cares for Tourism. We are at a tourism conference. You were well received last night. And I know because I was behind you, it's hard to hear, but like you have not been to an ESTO before, right? This was kind of like your first instance, or have you?
No, I have not. I'm a university professor by day job, right?
Yes.
And I teach tourism marketing. So coming to ESTO is like a little bit of a dream, but faculty typically don't come to these things, right? So to have it in Grand Rapids is super wonderful to have everybody in Michigan. But I was, yes, very excited to finally see all those great tourism marketers together in a space.
Well, and what I was going to say is like you were well received. They love the message. And so for people who might not be familiar with Michigan Cares for Tourism, can you tell them, one, how did it start? Because I love the story of how it kind of came to be and kind of what it does.
Thank you. And, it's an emotional story for me because as a faculty member, I work with students my whole career, but I've also always worked with the industry. I came out of industry. I was kind of a non-traditional academic in that, got my PhD late in life, but been teaching for 30 plus years. And so I always love being connected to the industry. And early on, I served on NTA's board at the time. And when they merged with the Travelers Conservation Foundation like 20 years ago, I was on the founding board for Tourism Cares. And Tourism Cares did these amazing volunteer events. They would pick one kind of iconic tourism site around the U.S. at the time, way back then. And my deal was if I was going, which I wanted to go, I would bring students because that's what I do. And
yes. Yeah.
It used to only be kind of just tourism professionals. And then because I was on the board, I just said, gosh, you guys, and they let me. And I brought my first students who back in 2005, actually, my first event, it was at Mount Vernon. And it really opened my eyes. But then the next year was Hurricane Katrina, and they did an amazing event, 400 tourism professionals. And I brought 50 students from the university I was at, and it was life-changing for us all. And at that moment, as we traveled by motor coach, right, from Michigan all the way down to Biloxi, Mississippi, and worked on these 9 tourism sites that were devastated. It was 6 months after the hurricane, and it felt like it was yesterday. Like we had all never experienced anything, but you saw, tourism was their economy. That's the base economy there. Like it is so important to every location. And it was just a really amazing experience where I got to see students work alongside professionals, and it was an even playing field. Like they had no trouble communicating to the professional. The professional had admiration for them because they were hardworking and they were polite. And it was just, I go, oh my gosh, I can't capture this in a classroom ever. And
yeah, I was literally going to say like the radial effect of those sort of meetings. I wonder like if you can't really measure stuff like that, but if you could measure something like that, what kind of like the radius effect would be by having a student be in a place like that, doing something that profound next to professionals. What happens next, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's about networking, right? But I also knew how I'd take students to a conference and it'd be hard for them, right? They didn't know what to say and how to interact. And it just removed all the barriers. But there was like this newfound respect for each group, instead of students being, parties or whatever, like in the eyes of a professional, there was like newfound respect for both groups. And so I just went, oh my gosh, I got to have more of that or I'm going to retire. That was it. But I was too young to retire. That was it. I called it, back then it was 2006. I was dropping the mic moment I did on the bus. I go, that's it. I'm done. Oh, too bad I have little kids and I got to support them. Like,
yes. Yeah.
So anyway, so what happened is, 4 years later, I finally said, I got one shot at this life. If I don't try this, I will regret this the rest of my life. And I knew in Michigan, we had amazing tourism destinations. We also had our state park system, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, managed, 103 state parks, but they had 250 historic sites. And at the time back then, in like 2009, they had a $400 million maintenance deficit on those sites.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't unlike what was happening in Italy and Greece,
Yep.
and right places that countries were just, they didn't have the money to keep these sites alive, so it was going to other important things, but we're going to lose them. So it made it a now or never. I had the right partners in place, and so I went to 5 partners and said, can't get this out of my system. I really want to replicate this in Michigan. We have need. I'm a university professor. I'm concerned about you all. Like, I'm Switzerland is what I always say, right? Like,
Yes.
I want you all to succeed, and I'm tired of everybody working in silos. I got to go to a lot of conferences. This is crazy. Like, why? The tourism experience is everybody, right? So, and we can't do it without each other. So somehow we got to come together. So that's really how it started. And I decided I just didn't want to do it by myself. I couldn't do it by myself. It was going to work. And so I went to partners, and at the time I was at another university, but I went to Grand Valley State University, and I said, hey, I want to do this. I don't want to do it by myself. Are you guys in? And they're like, we're in, because it was a really philanthropic town for one. Grand Rapids is. It's also a giving university. I knew they were the right kind of institution to partner with. And then I went to Pure Michigan because they were key, and they said, Dave Lorenz right away said, oh, we're in. And I go, oh my gosh, I was the most nervous I've ever been presenting to anyone, because I knew how important they would be to the product. But then Indian Trails, I knew I wanted motor coaches for free, and Indian Trails were like, we're in, we're going to donate those. And then, of course, the Department of Natural Resources were like, yeah, we're in. So the irony was we all, and then Tourism Cares, I had the model. So I said to Tourism Cares, I was still serving on the board, I'm like, can we replicate it in Michigan? Can we? But it's going to be a zero-based budget. All of us have day jobs. This isn't to have an executive director.
Sure.
This is for all of us to be volunteers and give in a meaningful way. So thanks for that digestion. But it really started from the magic of watching students work alongside the industry in these volunteer events that Tourism Cares did. And we said, let's do it. And so the irony was, it's not a threatening sale. Like, it's a, hey, does it work? If it works. Right. And I tell people all the time, I'm a university professor. I'll do anything to make you people better, right? So if this isn't it, let's go do something else. I'm in. But for 10 years, it's been a good addition, right, to what we do. It increased our volunteerism as an industry, I believe, but it's increased our communication. It's increased our sense of community, right? It's given us the same things, the magic of the Tourism Cares experience, but I think it's even done more because we all still work together on a daily basis. These are our sites. This is where we live. This is where we work. And we know from our volunteers volunteering. So for those maybe listening, I hope, and Michigan Cares for Tourism, as we describe it, is a volunteer partnership with all of Michigan's tourism industry to help restore our historic natural and cultural attractions. And it's not just the Department of Natural Resources we work with, but we do work with other nonprofits, right? Sites like lighthouses, run by a lighthouse society that has 100% volunteers trying to make that thing work, and hard time raising money. And, so it's just, we're too special of a place not to make sure these things are around for a lifetime, and the next lifetime and the next one. It's about, so with that, though, 10 years later, I pinch myself every day. We have a board representing the industry across disciplines and across geography. They're the only reason, right, that we get to do this, because
right.
it's not a power board. It is a hands-on, make it happen board. And we've got to grow in different ways, even beyond our events I didn't talk about last night, but we're trying to keep the needs of the industry in mind, and what can we do as a collective body to make that happen. So,
and what I was going to say is, I have not had the pleasure of joining one of these yet, but all of our staff members who have just rave about the experience, right? And so my question is, what is the thought process between, I would imagine that you have lots of projects that either are coming to you or you have the idea of going to. How does one project get picked over the other, and what's kind of like the way in which one gets highlighted, and then you need the volunteers and you do the thing, right?
That's a great question. And you'd think we'd have this laundry list of sites and just like, oh my gosh, we have so, and it's not the case because I often say there's not only a willingness, right? There might be a site that's willing, but they're not ready for it. You have to
Got
be
it.
ready.
Okay.
You have to. So I call it a willingness and a readiness. And our DMOs, since we're at ESTO here, our DMOs have been critical to that model, and we went to them early on, the MACBB, and said, hey, we want to do this. We know you're critical, just like Pure Michigan was critical, and are you in? And they're all like, we're in. Gaylord is coming to Detroit. Detroit's going to Traverse City, like the UP is going, so it didn't matter where it was. And we were going to do an RFP process at first. And MACBB came to me and said, you know what? We like that you just pick it because we know you're Switzerland. Like we know your board
Yes.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
representing the
Yes.
industry. We don't want this political. And maybe the site that needs it the most is the one that would not have the ability to do an RFP and do the formal process. And it was a teachable moment for me because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, I'm grateful every moment for that because it really made the difference. Our board decides. So what we say is, hey, anybody who knows of sites that are willing and ready, right, and can have the conversation the next step, let us know. We use the Department of Natural Resources to be a base of that because, again, they had the 250 sites that had the big deficit. So they have made a financial commitment to our organization to anytime we're on DNR lands, which are public lands, right? They are important to visitors. They are important to residents of the state. They're a big part of what Michigan does. And they're critical to the tourism process, which as an educator, I've been wanting everybody to be together as this one cohesive, happy family forever, including our park systems, whether they're city parks or county or state parks. Um, and so with that, they come to us always with, okay, we've got a couple sites that are willing and ready, right? Park managers are ready to take on the challenge. And then we try a year in advance to get the next place we're going. So we already know where we're going next year as our big project. We do a lot of half day,
Sure. Yeah.
full day, but our
Yep.
big projects are 2 days. It's part familiarization tour. We want the industry to be educated about the destination and the region, and then part volunteerism, right? So have a full day of volunteering, a full day of learning, growing, networking, right? But those we only do one of those a year, and then we do a bunch of other half day and full day, no fam tour kind of thing. So
Now,
so
Patty, you've been kind of in this space for obviously for a decade, right? Doing this for 10 years, as you said, you pinch yourself. And I'm interested as somebody who taught for a long time myself, I'm wondering if, and maybe you can't yet, maybe this will be something down the road, but I'm wondering if you could maybe put some form around how Michigan Cares for Tourism has changed the way that you teach in the classroom.
oh, you know, it's changed for the best reason because I feel super connected to the industry. So I'm super connected to the real life issues and problems that our industry is facing. I never wanted to be a four-wall mark or four-wall
Yeah.
educator,
Yeah.
that I never
Right.
left the ivory tower,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
scared
Yes.
me actually. And
Yeah.
when I say I've been doing this for 32 years and I go, oh my gosh, how could I be doing this? But I never left the industry. Now I feel like I'm in the industry and educating like to get like together. So it's made, I think, everything I teach incredibly real. I teach community-based learning models. I teach marketing and research. Those are my two super
Yep.
passions. And all of my students do real life projects. So during COVID, as an example, we did 28 different visitor research studies for 28 different CVBs in
Wow.
the state for
That's
free.
awesome. Yeah.
The only reason I could do that is because I've built a relationship now with different CVBs as part of Michigan Cares. So I could say to them, hey, you guys, COVID's so horrible for everybody. And the only thing I know how to do is marketing and like let me do with my students free visitor study for all of you. Anybody who wants to do it. And 28 of them took us up on that. So I keep saying I can't wait to do a puzzle because I haven't done one yet for COVID because we had a chance. But I say it's only because of Michigan Cares. So
Yes.
every one of my students for the last 2 years worked directly with a CVB on their visitor study that they had never done before. And I go, oh, yeah, love my job, right? Like, how lucky am I? But the same thing I would say when I teach marketing, my students have to do real marketing plans. And guess who they're going to do them with? They're going to sites they know that have need and interest, but sites I know. So it's made me and allowed me, first of all, I love my job even more because I'm with all the people I care to serve. People go, "What do you do for a living?" I go, "I'm a university professor," and they go, "Oh," and I go, "No, my job is I get to move the industry forward. That's my job description, and I get
Yep.
to do it through education, but I get to do it through service, and I get to do it through scholarship. I love research. I love, But Michigan Cares gave me the platform, right, to really make a full educator life. Like yeah, I don't know what I'd do without it, to be honest.
That's awesome. All right, Patty, people are listening to this podcast. They want to learn more. Where do they go and what do they do?
Well, first of all, I want them to be part of our $1 million year. This is our 10th year. We have given $1 million of value to the 42 different sites we've worked on, whether half day or multi-day, in Michigan. And our next event, September 11th and 12th, Cambridge Junction in the Irish Hills of Michigan. Super historic, mid 1800s, unbelievable area right next to MIS. It's connected by land. It's crazy. So we want people to come volunteer there. It's open registration. We want them to experience our multi-day event. It's the first one since COVID for multi-day that we've been able to do.
Awesome.
And we want that. It's at michigancaresfortourism.org. There's the full agenda for what we're going to do for 2 days, as well as registration. So we want the industry to come join us, and we want all those people at ESTO from other states to come join us. Because I made that invitation last night, and my new best friends are from West Virginia because they want to know how we do our model. And I'm like, oh, people, we're ready to share it. We know it's a competitive advantage for us. Like, hey,
Absolutely.
We're all about that. So we hope people will first come volunteer. Also on our website, though, we do a publication called Michigan Giving, where we learned because of this experience all these amazing stories of what the industry was doing out of their own generosity. So we just are about to launch the publication of our sustainability edition, where we got to tell 20 different stories and make podcasts for us the first time on the industry, like the Detroit Zoo. Does an amazing job with their sustainable energy.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
We learn so much. So we want to be storytellers to the industries about their generosity, because we don't brag about it. So I'm going to brag about you all. You are amazing. And so we do that. That publication is on our website. And just know, industry, I want them to know we're focused on the future. We're working on a partnership with charter schools. We're going to bring high schoolers into our volunteer projects. We want to teach them about the powerful, wonderful tourism industry and address some of the issues we hope that will help. And that's with manpower and some of all the challenges our industry is facing with having enough people, skilled, qualified, high quality people to do the job. So we're working on that. And, it's more than just these volunteer events. And because of their donations to us, zero-based budget. If the industry doesn't help fund it or other providers, it doesn't happen. So because of their generosity, we're able to do those other things.
Awesome.
And move it that way. So.
All right. Well, Patty, thank you so much for the time. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to catch up after your event in September.
Well, Eric, you need to be there. I'm just saying. We would love to do a little live remote.
I would love to do that. Yeah, okay. And then let's catch up afterwards. All right, my friend?
Okay. Thanks for your time so much. Take care.
Take care.